The boom really was a result of mobile. Because going back again,
When you say mobile, you mean like
mobile
phones.
phone technology.
Okay, yeah.
Tablets and mobile phone. What used to be, again, traditional client server, meaning you had a laptop, a desktop, talking to some back end system. That was pretty much, that was tech.
Yeah.
Tech is now mobile.
Yeah, that's true.
So all the software development things that are happening are pretty much being done for consumption by a mobile device.
Welcome to another episode of Tech is the New Black, your source to discover experts in the technology space that are sharing exclusive secrets in this industry, all meant to help you break into tech, scale in this industry, and of course, launch your own billion-dollar startup. Y'all, we have a guest today that I'm incredibly excited about. The most senior guest we've had in terms of knowledge, in terms of tenure in this industry and within this space, who has seen a lot. He's seen a lot. And I mean, y'all gonna see it here. I'm very excited to have him, especially someone that I met before even stepping into this space. So this is really cool. You've all heard a lot from me, someone who is still young in tech. And now you're going to be able to hear from my guest who has just a obscene amount of knowledge about everything that's happening in this industry and the changes. Let me go ahead. As always, got to read off his bio. So that way y'all not just hearing it from me. We could put some respect on my guest's name. So Ed Frye was born and raised in Tifton, Georgia. He's currently a principal cloud architect for NBC Universal. He's a former senior cloud architect with Amazon Web Services, AWS. Ed has worked with a wide range of companies on tech initiatives for over the last 20 years. From Capital One, IBM, Qualcomm. Y'all, these are big deal tech companies. I hope y'all paying attention. We need some bombs being dropped after all of these. Qualcomm, Workday, Hertz, IHG, Georgia Gas and Light, Madison Square Garden, University of Systems of Georgia. Y'all, I almost feel like we need to have a crowd so I can say give a round of applause to my guest. But nevertheless, no, I'm gonna still say it anyway. No matter where you at, give a little pat clap for my guest, Ed.
Appreciate it.
Man.
Appreciate it.
How are you doing, man?
Good, man.
Man, thank you again so much for coming on.
No doubt.
Yeah, so y'all don't know this, but I hit up Ed earlier this year when I first started flapping my gums about this industry, about this space. And I was like, man, okay, I was doing like my dial pad meetings, which those who don't know dial pad things, Zoom meetings. And I was educating people and I was bringing on different guests. But when Ed and I spoke, it was very clear to me. I was like, I can't bring him on one of these virtual meetings. I was like, it has to be like in a real studio. It has to be a real legit setup because it was just crazy, a lot of the things he was dropping on me. And I was like, yo, this has to be official. So that way we could put some respect on his knowledge, on some of the gems that he was sharing. So dude, so happy to actually have you on here. Man, let's get right into it. What does a cloud architect do? Like, what is that?
Wow, it's kind of all encompassing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, actually prior to even moving to the cloud space, I was an Oracle consultant. Okay. So my focus at the time was, of course, implementations, architecting, ERP, database optimization, integration type work. What kind of led me to that was the journey. Okay. So kind of stepping into tech back in '98 with Bell South at the time, which is now AT&T. I started as a developer.
And you was in tech probably before I could spell technology. That's wild. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, tech was different. Tech was pretty much all hardware.
Yeah.
Hardware, storage, of course, databases.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Databases is pretty much what created Microsoft, created Oracle, and companies pretty much built around that.
Yeah.
Client server model. Now it's completely different.
Yes. So how did you end up making the steps to, I mean, cloud architect wasn't even a thing back then because it wasn't a cloud at the time.
It was all data center centric, on premise. But yeah, architects have been around since the onset.
Yeah.
An architect, you basically, look for solutions. Mm-hmm. You design solutions, you blueprint, you kind of find ways to innovate. Mm-hmm. And you execute, you deploy.
Okay, so all right, so we have a large audience that's all over the place. There are people that are listening or watching that are other seniors in tech.
Sure.
But then we also have people that are shoot. Last week they probably just learned what tech is.
Right.
And so for the things you're mentioning about, okay, you creating solutions,
right, and
deploying, like what would that look like to them, or I guess explaining that to them?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to look different now because of, CI/CD type life cycles where you're deploying software, you're deploying code.
Yeah.
Back then it was physical, you're
hardware, they're actually
provisioning, provisioning physical servers, you're bootstrapping those servers in the data center, you're plugging them into the network switches, you have firewalls. I mean,
so basically anyone who's worked there, like let's say a call center or some company where there's a big room with these big servers, right, and the computer room type of thing, or the IT room.
Right.
Once upon a time, not that long ago,
IT room.
But once upon a time, that was tech. It was tech. That probably on steroids.
Right.
Type of thing.
Flashing lights.
Yeah. So all the little buttons where it's like, okay, all these buttons and cords, what is all of this stuff?
Right.
But something happened where now when people mention tech, usually they're referring to software. So we mentioned hardware, but now usually they're talking about software or SaaS, software as a service.
Sure.
So I really truly don't even know when that transition happened.
Salesforce.
Okay. Oh, that's why Salesforce is such a big dog.
Salesforce was the innovator.
Yeah,
when it comes to SaaS. I mean, CRM, which at the time was something that was pretty much owned by Oracle, some of your largest software shops, Microsoft, Dynamics. Salesforce came in and offered a cloud-based CRM solution that every company tapped into.
Okay.
Because in terms of how companies do business, it all starts with the customer.
Yeah.
Which actually starts with the lead, right? So a lead turns into an opportunity turns into a customer. That's the business with Salesforce. And then once a customer buys something, now you have a life cycle.
Yeah.
You kind of manage all of the interactions, what they're buying, what they need, projections, budgets, forecasting, all that.
Man, it's crazy because I know that Salesforce is, I'm not sure if this is still the case, but from what I've heard that they're the number one CRM, I never realized how long they've been in the game.
Right.
As well as just how big of a figure they were in terms of like helping transform the industry. So that's really incredible. So what's interesting to me is how, okay, I know initially it was, hardware, the space was mainly or just solely hardware, but you got into the space before anyone even knew, like really, like when most people even really considered tech, especially, and I don't like to lean too heavy into these particular conversations, but especially people who look like us. Like it's like,
right,
like just people of color in general weren't like tech. Like what is that? Like that's for nerds and computer stuff and things like that. So what was it that happened for you that 20 years ago or more than 20 years ago you were like, hey, yeah, I want to go this route?
So let's step back a little bit. So I actually was an architect major out of high school.
You said you were an architect major.
I was an architect major. I went to FAMU.
Okay.
Briefly.
Shouts out FAMU.
Shouts out to FAMU, Rattlers. But I was actually spooked a little bit by a professor who said, as an apprentice or an architect major, you have to work in the industry 5 to 10 years as an apprentice before you can be licensed.
Woo!
Yeah, so I was like, that's a little bit too slow.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I was drawn to computer-aided drafting, CAD.
Okay.
AutoCAD was kind of piqued my interest. And but you didn't touch.
You said auto what?
AutoCAD.
What was that?
Computer-aided drafting. That's actually a program used. You use it today to design buildings, virtual walkthroughs. Pretty much any building you see was probably.
Oh, okay.
Started.
Oh, that's cool.
In that app, using that application. So, but yeah, as a freshman, sophomore, junior, you didn't touch any of that. It was all old school drafting boards and all that.
Yeah.
Even in 94, 95, that was a little too.
So when you say architect, you really mean the traditional architect?
Frank Lloyd Wright type architect.
Wow. So you draw? It's like a sidebar.
Not really.
Okay.
But I like the design.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a difference.
Okay.
It's a difference. But so that didn't quite pan out, and so I ended up switching. But getting to the point, because of my love for just technology in general, my mom actually introduced me in middle school. I was sitting home one summer, I was back home, small town, Tifton, Georgia. It was all about sports, basketball, football, but it's seasonal. So over the summer, she's like, well, you need to do something. So she signed me up for a basic programming class.
That's crazy.
$75. And I was like, my mom's a school teacher. It was not a lot of money, but she saw the opportunity. It's like, okay, you need to do something. But that piqued my interest. I made a video game that summer of basic programming.
What? Wait. How old were you, or like what grade were you in?
Grade 12. I think I was 12.
And so the same summer that you got introduced to it, you ended up like developing something and making a game.
Yeah, that was part of like the little program curriculum. So
man, shouts out to moms.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, so beautiful. Like her being like, okay, I'm gonna get my son in this, and I mean, like a visionary too. Like for her to see something and be like, yo, this is something he should be into.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I learned flow charting. Flow charting is still a thing today. That's where everything starts. Man. Even today. Yeah. In software development. So, but yeah, it was pretty simple. Nothing. I mean, it was all. I think it was Apple IIc. No one knows what it is, but it was all.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'm like,
it was just a command, a response.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Simple.
But so from there, I just always been drawn to computers. I was fascinated. What's happening in this thing? Why am I getting a response by hitting this keyboard?
Yeah.
So coming to Atlanta '98, that role with Bell South, which pretty much more of like a support role. But I was exposed to financials, financial systems. So financial systems, data, understanding how they report off of data.
Yeah.
At the time, Bell South, they have hundreds of subsidiaries around the world. So we're getting a bunch of financial data feeds that we have to put into what we would call a warehouse, data warehouse.
Yeah.
And what was happening is their reporting cycle was like 3 months to report quarterly financials.
Okay.
And CFO was like, it's taking too long. It's not quite accurate.
He wanted it to be more frequent,
more streamlined,
and more accurate. Yeah.
Right, and more accurate. It's just you got to do currency conversion. So yeah, I was kind of plugged into that, and that kind of got me exposed to databases.
Yeah.
That was Oracle at the time back then. I learned something, just reporting in general, analytical tools. Business objects, and you have Cognotes, and you have a couple different analytical tools nowadays, but it's pretty much the same concept.
Yeah.
Big thing now is data analysis. You're seeing people kind of dive into that.
Yeah, that's been coming up a lot. I've seen that a lot.
So data analysis.
So what is? It sounds like you're about to touch on what is data analysis exactly. Well, I can hear the name and assume what it is, but
So you have languages like R and Python, some things, tools you can use to take data feeds, so data input. It can be pretty much anything, any type of data, and you basically create charting graphs. You represent that data visually. So either you're doing calculations or you're probably building charts, so you can actually see, what it is, and then that's a big deal. So those, when people are making decisions in companies, they need those what they call decision support systems, which data warehouses help them determine, how much money are we spending, how much we're making, who are our customer base, Data analysis is pretty much what runs business. You can't make decisions without it. So,
okay. So going back to something that you said just earlier when you were touching on what a cloud architect is. So I'm one of the things I try to do, especially for my audience, but also for myself, is to show how we all work together in terms of our roles. And so obviously, like as a sales engineer, if I'm demoing the product, it's usually because the account executive or the sales rep, they have a prospect or customer that's interested in our company and our technology, and they're interested, but they have some technical questions, and or they want to see a demonstration of the product and how it'll look like if and when their company decides to work with our company or to sign a contract. So as a sales engineer, I demonstrate the product. But every now and again, the customer is like, oh, well, can your product do X, Y, and Z? And if it can't, we'll tell them, okay, we'll ask the product team. Hey, product team, product manager.
Feature requests.
Yeah, feature requests.
Right,
when is this feature going to be out? Or we'll look across the calendar, the roadmap for, okay, when certain features are going to be out. And so when the product team is like, okay, there's a feature that we need that's like really in demand by customers. When they request for that feature to be created, are they reaching out to the cloud architect?
No.
Okay.
No, that's going to go to a development team.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So getting back to the cloud architect, what does a cloud architect do? So right now you have what you call private cloud, which is usually something that companies will build using existing resources in their data center. So they're taking all of these servers that they bought over the years, trying to cluster those together and create a virtualization stack, VMware.
Yeah, okay.
So you've probably heard of VMware. That's usually, I mean, there's other ones, I mean, like OpenShift and some things, but VMware is a big one where they're just trying to take commodity hardware and create their own private cloud to spin up virtual resources. Okay. And they're doing that because the time it used to take to launch or roll out a solution, a product, application upgrade, you had to order something from Dell. You had to, hopefully it's in back order. You had to have it shipped. You had to receive it. You had to prep it. You're talking weeks to basically launch something simple like, I don't know, a small, website or a database or, mail server. Now that can be done in minutes using automation.
Yeah.
Software, infrastructure as code, which is pretty much where and why people are moved to the cloud, because you can move quicker. You can pretty much ensure that what you're doing repeatable, meaning, if you stood up server A with this configuration, server B is going to come up with the same, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes in the old world, you would get a mixed bag of things because it could be something different within the server from the vendor you didn't know about. So now you have a server falling offline. You don't know why, because you have some type of OS conflict with some hardware. So, companies like Amazon, who used to use heavy Cisco, heavy Intel.
Yeah, until they built out their...
They build their own now.
Yeah.
They fabricate because they want consistency.
Yeah. Is that why they built AWS?
Well, AWS actually started because there was a surplus of servers from Amazon.com.
Oh, and they decided, hey, we need to have our own.
We have all this capacity, let's sell it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where AWS came about, because Amazon.com bought a bunch of capacity to sell books and was kind of sitting idle, right? And we'll get into what idle means to a company. So companies like Dell, IBM, HP were selling a bunch of hardware to companies.
Yeah.
Sales guys like, look, you need this.
Yeah.
You need to buy it. It's pretty. Buy it. It's beefy. Buy it. And they were buying it just to say, I got it. And it wasn't being used. It was underutilized. So that underutilization is costing companies money to power, to cool, pay someone to manage it, to look at the light flashing. Yeah. Switch a disk out, some storage every now and then. It was costing money. So you got operational costs, then you have the CapEx, capital expenditures. So those two components are just costing companies a lot of money. Yeah. And the CFO is like, we got to stop spending. Yeah. So it's just, big thing with public cloud now, Amazon, AWS, and Azure, is you're looking at ways to cost optimize, meaning we need to right size and only buy what we need. Yeah. Right? So instead of just buying this beefy server to do this one thing and you're wasting cycles, provision something that only uses the resources that we assign to it.
All right, so I might be kind of jumping ahead, but listening to all of this, and literally the wheels are kind of like spinning, like going crazy in my head, because there seemed to be a huge boom at some point within just the tech space. I was going to say the software space, but I guess at the time it was barely software, it was mainly hardware. Right. But it seemed to be this boom where, okay, these companies are exploding. There are a crap ton of companies startups is kind of almost coming out of nowhere. Many of them have scaled and done incredible things.
Sure.
As well as we see like just the increase of hires, the increase of roles,
right?
But also in that just the money in terms of the pay really being incredible. And so did that happen because, and maybe there's other factors that you'll key me in on, but did that happen because basically once companies made the transition from hardware to software, where okay, now we don't have to pay all of this money to maintain these things that take up all of this space, where we either have to keep them warehoused somewhere, or you know, and also these things cost so much and we got to kind of keep them up. Once they remove those, or at least once companies started paying other companies that had their own like data centers, is that something that saved them enough money that when the companies were able to scale, the individual companies were able to scale further and then also be able to like open up all of these other roles?
Yeah, I mean, the boom really was a result of mobile.
Okay.
Mobile pretty much, because going back again.
When you say mobile, you mean like
mobile
phones.
phone technology.
Okay, yeah.
Tablets and mobile phone. What used to be, again, traditional client server, meaning you had a laptop, a desktop, talking to some back end system. That was tech. Yeah. Tech is now mobile.
Yeah, that's true.
So all the software development things that are happening are pretty much being done for consumption by a mobile device.
Okay.
Or some web-based application.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you know, I remember vividly because I was kind of had the entrepreneur just kind of thinking like, how am I going to get away from corporate? So just kind of give you an idea of kind of how tech has allowed startups to really tap in and develop these, you know, solutions for customers. Back in, I guess, 2012, I think it was, I was talking with the owner of SAAS Salon.
Oh, wow.
You probably heard of SAAS.
Yeah, I've heard of SAAS, yeah.
Back then, I had pitched basically a appointment scheduling solution. And I was using
were those even a thing? Like a thing in 2012?
There was no online.
Yeah.
Okay, there was an online scheduling solution. So I had built something using Microsoft Collaboration Data Objects. Is old tech. But anyway, it was web-based. Yeah. Right? So no one's walking around a laptop or, you know, with the desktop trying to schedule an appointment or looking for a chair at SAAS. But when you had this new age set of frameworks to develop mobile applications, now you can start to create things that people can use. Uber, Instacart, you know, Calendly.
Yes.
So
all of them you named, I used all of those.
I saw the need.
Yeah.
The tech just didn't support it at the time. So there was really no mobile, like even from a UI perspective. You had very heavyweight things that didn't perform well on mobile phones, you know, old Android phones. It just wasn't optimized for mobile. Yeah. Where now you have very lightweight frameworks and, you know, languages, React for UI stuff. Yeah. That is cool with it. So pretty much anything you see now is developed with the intent of consumption by a mobile device that open up a whole new world of opportunities for business.
You know, it's wild that you mentioned timing. I was listening to I'm not sure if it was a TED Talk, but it was very TED Talk style, where some business owner, he was speaking about like what's the most important thing for like a new business, and he was saying timing. And he gave examples of businesses that were so far ahead of their time, the technology wasn't there to fully support what the concept was. And then other businesses came along 2, 3, 4 years later that were the exact same thing, but because now the infrastructure of technology can now support that, it's able to do that. So it's really crazy to hear about like you being ahead of the curve in different ways, and just at the time technology just wasn't where your head was at.
Yeah, I said 12. It was actually 2006.
Okay, that makes a lot. Okay,
it was 2006.
That's wild.
Yeah, it was. I think the first iPhone dropped in 2006 or 7.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you're right. Because I joined the Marine Corps. I graduated high school / joined the Marine Corps the end of 2007 or beginning of 2008. And at the time, there was only the iPhone. The first iPhone or the second iPhone was out around that time. Yo, what's good, family? If you're tuning into this and you're wondering, yo, how do I get a job like that in tech? We've got good news for you because we've just partnered with a tech bootcamp called General Assembly that'll help you get a job like this or a variety of others, no matter where you live at in the world. We're talking product management, UX, UI design, programming or development, data science, data analytics, and a variety of others. Use the link in our description, and not only will you be able to do your first class for free, but for those who decide to sign up with the program, you'll get a $200 discount off. Make sure that you let us know which course you chose and keep us posted on your journey in tech. So that's spot on. So with that, man, you've seen a lot in this industry. Like you've seen obviously from it being hardware focused to more software. But what are some other like changes you've seen, whether within companies or within the industry, things that like most people, even including myself, just aren't like aware of? From a
people or just tech in general?
All of it. Like people, because there have been a lot of changes. I mean, even recently, like we see, okay, what happened a couple years ago with the pandemic, and of course, you know, the murder of George Floyd and everything with Ahmaud Arbery, and how we see tech companies where now they've shifted to, or they shifted. I'm not sure if they're going back to how they used to be, but we see them, okay, now them having these huge initiatives about having diversity. Right. So that being one thing, but then also components of, you know, things we're seeing today where it's a candidate or employee market right now, which I don't think there's ever been a time, at least that I've ever seen, you know, of things being an employee market where it's like, this is weird, where employees are basically making demands and companies almost feel somewhat at the mercy of what their employees are doing. So like but you're at another level, you being not even senior, you're principal, you know, shouts out to that. Congratulations for that.
Appreciate
you
it.
Being principal, which those who don't know, that's above like a senior level in tech. You've not just seen a lot, but you sit in different seats where you see things and you know things that most people might not be privy to. So I guess and I know I just said a lot there, but just literally just some of the things you've seen or experienced, whether it's with people, whether it's with technology, and also like where you think you could be seeing things going.
So getting back to the attention on DEI, diversity and inclusion. Yeah. It's a big thing now. You know, obviously, you know, the events of 2020 really sparked interest. And just how we're perceived in industry, perceived in society as minorities. But, you know, I will say I was at Amazon at the time. I was actually shocked to see how people the organization as a whole just kind of paused and said, hey, let's just talk. Let's just start these conversations. And the conversations weren't really framed, they weren't structured. It's kind of like an open forum.
It was like real organic.
I mean, top of the chain. I think Andy Jassy was involved. Don't remember Bezos being in, but Jassy for sure chimed in at times. And it's like, you know,
that's the current CEO, right?
No, he's moved over to the Amazon side.
Okay.
See, I forgot the new CEO for AWS, but at the time he was.
Oh yeah, we're talking AWS. I'm thinking.
Right. They're two. Yeah, AWS is the moneymaker for Amazon.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. People think that Amazon's main source of income is basically their online retail store. No. It's like, no, it's AWS, and the general public don't even know what AWS is. It's like that's Amazon's real moneymaker.
It's cloud, for sure. But no, I mean, it's pretty much gave everyone opportunity to kind of talk about what are the oppositions you're seeing, what are the struggles, what is the daily. And I know for me, you know, moving up, you know, up the chain, different companies, you know, the challenge for me was kind of commanding the room, earning the respect of the people at the table. Yeah. It has to go beyond that initial perception. Just who I am. It's more about what does he know, and then not only what does he know, and how do we validate that. So that was always a struggle, is earning trust for individuals. So even when I started Amazon has leadership principles. That's one of them. You earn the trust of whoever you're dealing with.
Okay.
So that was always a challenge for me, and it wasn't, I think there was always preconceived notions about, okay, it's a large company, you know, how are you in the room? Well, I'm in the room.
Yeah, exactly. All that matters, I'm in the room.
I'm in the room. So, you know, once you kind of learn how to move without concerning yourself about how you're being, you know, perceived as an individual, you know, it's like, okay, I may enter this room one way, but when I leave, all that goes away.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I won't, you know, you don't want to show that, you're intimidated. You don't want to show that, you know, you're overly excited to be there. I'm just, you know, it's just another day.
Yeah, exactly. Just another Wednesday, day. Another Tuesday.
But I think the more time you put yourself in those situations, which is key, you have to be uncomfortable. Yeah. That's part of growth. Yeah. Right? So you can't shy away from opportunities, shy away from situations, because that's where you're going to grow professionally as an individual. So, but no, I think the more time I, you know, spent, you know, starting in 98 at Bell South, just stepping into a world I knew nothing about, you know, it's like you gotta, you know, one of the items I mentioned was you gotta dive deep. You know, it's more than, you know, there's a lot of people that are getting into tech that didn't necessarily go to college. Yeah. That's a huge thing right now, because most college curriculums are outdated.
Yeah, that's one of the things I tell people in the space where it's like, man, especially because how everything in tech is changing faster than college. Because even if college tried to keep up with the curriculum, it's impossible for it to. Yeah.
So, you know, dive deep to me means simply you just got to stay, you know, curious. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Read, stay abreast. I mean, everything is pretty much publicized now. There was no YouTube in 98. There was no YouTube in 2000. Man. So it was books. Yeah. You know, books and some online stuff. But, you know, you read, you try some things, you know, but you got to carve out the time just to continue feeding that part. You know,
never get to a point of arrival or a point of like, oh, I made it.
It's nonstop. Yeah. Even now, there's stuff I'll be looking at tonight. Yeah. You know, it's a nonstop.
That's really good, because oftentimes one of the things that people don't realize, they think there's so much they have to know right now just to enter the space, like at ground level. And it's like, it's not that much you have to know entry level. There are some companies that'll just take you even you don't know anything, even if you didn't do a boot camp or anything else, for like very entry level roles. But one of the things I do try to elaborate to people is that it's very strange being in this space. It's my first time ever getting a glimpse of a feeling of maybe what like a lawyer or a particular medical doctor might feel like, where they constantly have to stay up to date with, if it's a medical doctor, they have to stay up to date with surgery procedures or certain medications or how things it's like you never know it all. You have to constantly or a lawyer, laws are constantly changing, right? You know, things are constantly moving. You're getting new customers and clients all the time that have a unique situation, and you have to study their entire case, right? And so it's, when I got in this space, at first I was thinking like, oh yeah, once I get to a certain point I'll be good. But then I quickly realized, oh no, it's constant study. It never stops. It never stops. So it's like you do have to have that mentality. Like what did you do, or what do you think it was about yourself? Because you don't just accidentally, like you don't just end up as a senior cloud architect at AWS. Like that doesn't happen accidentally. That doesn't even happen where it's like, oh, I'm gonna just put my head down and work hard. It's like, no, that's something that has to have like some level of strategy behind it. Right. And so what is something either within yourself that you think you could communicate to others, or something that happened to you that sparked something in you that allowed you to kind of either make strategic moves or just make the right moves?
Yeah, I mean, even getting to AWS, you know, a lot of people are trying to apply. Yeah. Right? So I remember I went to New York for, they call them summits. It's kind of like a mini conference in cities around the country. But I just went to connect. At the time, I was still consulting. I was working with the university system of Georgia that's actually Board of Regents is based in Atlanta, but the division I was working with, OIT, is based in Athens. Okay. So that's where all the systems for, if you take, any class at any university here in the state, online courses, everything runs out of Athens.
Oh, wow.
So all of the systems where they pay people, the payroll systems, the financial systems, all that runs out of Athens.
Okay.
So there's 33 universities here in the state. There's 3 research. You got Georgia Tech, UGA, Medical College. So all those schools, all those people, all that data information sits in Athens. So
that's wild.
Yeah. So I actually started consulting with them back in 2007. I came in on opportunity to kind of help them upgrade some legacy systems, financials, and the HR. Because of my exposure to Oracle databases and web tech, so they brought me in. You deliver, right? So you get in, you get that opportunity, you deliver.
Yeah.
And customer satisfaction. That's you just got to make sure you can, speak to something, but don't overpromise, underdeliver. But you always kind of want to do a bit more. So they kind of kept me on board for a couple of years. That relationship kept growing. That experience, I had a story I could tell. That's where the resume, you're kind of building these stories in your resume. It's more than just buzzwords and topics. You kind of want to speak to something you've done, but frame it in a way where it aligns with, say, some current technology, right? So the way Amazon interviews, it's, they can vet you based on your skill set, right? Your buzzwords, but they want to know how you align to these principles that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
How give me a situation where you found yourself where you had to dive deeper, or you had to earn trust, or you had to, think big, just kind of outside the box. They want to know the story. And so you get in a situation in interviewing where you're going to talk, say, in the case of Amazon, you might speak to 6 people in a day. They all have different things they want to hear about. Okay. They take all the information.
Is this internal or
internal?
Okay, internal. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, just being able to tell a story about your journey, something you've done, where you've kind of stepped outside the box. You want to make sure you keep track of that. Keep track of emails, any kudos you get, just because at some point
that's gonna matter. Yeah,
it's gonna matter. So, and you mentioned the promotion at AWS, so that was like being rehired again.
Yeah.
But I had to have colleagues and customers, and I had to kind of tell the story.
So you say rehired again. So you mean, so even though you were there at the company and you had gone from, what was the role before you got promoted to senior?
Yeah, so internal, there's what they call L4, L5, L6, L7, right? So L5 is what I came in as when I was hired. I was promoted to L6, which is the senior CIA. Next step would have been L7,
which is principal
or practice manager or some director level role. But each one of those, there's certain things you have to accomplish. The leveling guide is what they call it. How do I check off against these items? So, and a lot of that has to do with, customer input. You have to show, have you generated X amount of money in revenue from consulting? So I was actually a consultant internal to Amazon.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I was being billed out to different companies. So that's where Capital One came in. That's where Hertz.
Yeah, okay.
That's where Qualcomm, Workday. So those companies were saying, hey, we need that consultant for this initiative. And of course, Amazon would bill me at X rate.
So when you went up to the L6 or to the senior at AWS, when you had made that, or when you had gotten that promotion, and you mentioned, okay, it was like you were essentially being, you didn't say interviewed. How did you put it again?
It was like being rehired again.
Yeah, rehired. Like being rehired.
Right.
So with that, there were certain metrics that you had to prove that you were hitting those metrics, but also you were saying that you made sure to keep the kudos you got, so that way you could use those things to present. To say, hey, look, not only did I make AWS this much money, but also, hey, internally, these are how many people I've helped. I've been a resource in this way, and I received this feedback from this many people in this kind of manner. So you really had to kind of pull from different areas. It wasn't even just, am I showing up? Am I doing my job? Am I making y'all money? But it's like, other boxes that most people wouldn't even think. Like, so basically, like, okay, to be at this kind of level, there's multiple boxes and variables that you need to check to be at that level. And man, that's incredible just to really think about that. That's definitely a lot. Now, yeah, because I was wondering, I'm like, man, it's definitely strategy, because I realize that most people can be in this industry if they work hard and if they're mildly competent. If you're mildly competent, you work hard, and you have a student mentality, you can do well. But it's like there are certain levels that the higher up you go, you're getting with more competitive. Like, people are much more competitive.
Right.
People are moving with strategy. There are people that have been playing the long game where it was their plan to be where you're at. And so it's like, okay, something like where you're at doesn't happen accidentally. And I definitely know I wouldn't even not even have thought to done stuff like some of the things you're mentioning that you did, and just the things that you pulled together to be able to present for that rehire within AWS. So, but you, after that promotion, you left AWS with that as a senior cloud architect,
right?
And you went over to NBC, which I'm sure most people wouldn't even consider NBC as a tech company or having tech. It's like most people think of NBC as just media company. And so, but you transition from there. Why? So obviously it was a promotion when you transitioned. So one, how did you get a promotion when you had just gotten a promotion 3 months ago?
Right.
And two, like, what was so enticing to you that you would leave, AWS, which is one of the most, if not, I think the most maybe not valuable company, but in terms of how much revenue they bring in, they're one of the most valuable companies in the world. Sure. Why would you make that transition?
Yeah, I mean, they're making a lot of money, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're paying you on par with what the industry should be. It's saying, hey, this is what this person is worth based on these skills.
Okay.
At the time, if you've done any research on Amazon, and anyone that's actually looking at a role should actually look at or pay attention to the total comp model.
Okay. Right. All right. So break that down.
All right. So total comp is it's usually three things. So you're gonna have your base salary, you have a potential sign-in bonus, right, when you come on board, and your annual bonus, if that exists.
Yeah.
It should. I mean, depending on the company, you should have some type of incentive if you're performing. So what Amazon was doing for years, and they lost a lot of senior people because of this, they were capping the base salary.
Yeah.
Right? That cap was $150K, actually $160K.
Oh, wow. Amazon?
Yeah. So what they would do,
that's crazy.
To supplement that, they would try to backload it with RSUs or stock options.
Okay.
Amazon stock was hot. They could, here's 100 shares of stock. Problem with that is when you get granted RSUs, you have to wait.
Yeah, because don't you have to usually stay at a company like 5 years or 10 years?
There's a vesting schedule, right?
Man.
So that in that vesting schedule, which usually probably 3 to 4 years, you can get like year one, you get a quarter of it.
Okay.
Year two, you get another. So they kind of.
So where they kind of string you along.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we all know about inflation, and things are happening while you're waiting, right? Your value's going up because you're doing more, you've done more. And so going through that promotion cycle, I was like, I've done a lot in 3 years. And I had been with the company 3 years. So in my fourth year, your contract doesn't really run out, but your initial total comp package is based on 4 years. So I wasn't necessarily happy with the outcome of the promotion. It was pretty much, here's some more stock, wait for it. No, I might shop this thing around a little bit.
Yeah.
I've contributed a lot. I think I probably generated, I think I went back and looked at it, like 6 million in consulting hours over 4 years.
Wow.
That's just individual. That's my work. That's what I'm billing. Yeah. So I don't know if I was supposed to say that.
No. That was perfect because one of the things that I see a lot with people that are trying to enter into this space is that all they know about are the big name companies, just the big wigs. And obviously NBC is like no shrimp fry. Like they're a big deal as well, but they're not a FANG, type of thing. And so oftentimes I find myself telling people like, hey, like don't get so caught up on just the flashy, company, because many times depending on the company, like they're not going to pay you industry standard because they're going to feel as if like, oh, we're this company. Like I'm thinking like Tesla. I have a friend of mine. He actually lives in this building, and he's a principal. He's a CTO at one company, but he's a principal developer. And Tesla reached out to him, and he ended up had an interview and talked over the phone. And once it got down to the money, it was mandatory. They said, "Oh, it's mandatory. We need you to move to Cali." Mm-hmm. And he said, "Okay, well, how much is the pay?" And they were offering him, I think it was about $125K. And he was like, Cali? "What? Yeah, to go to Cali."
Negative.
And he's been in space for dang near a decade, right. And he's been killing it. Yeah. And so he showed me the emails, and this is before I was in tech. So mind you, I know you've been in this space for a minute. You've been killing it. So I'm gonna tell you how the rest of the world is when the rest of the world has to talk to like recruiters or hiring managers. Right. The rest of the world, when you talk to a recruiter or hiring manager, is basically yes, sir, master, yes, sir. Like what you want to what is? Yeah. So this was my first time seeing someone have like leverage. Where he emailed them back and he basically broke it down, and he was not mincing words. He said, "You want me to do this and that." He's like, "I'm at this level already, and you're offering me this to move there." And he said, he told them, he said, "No," he said, you got to come and talk to me about at least, he said at least $175K. And mind you, this was 3-4 years ago. So I look at the email and I'm thinking, oh, there's no way they're gonna email him back. This is they email him back and they mention like, oh, well, we'd really love to have you. This is a great opportunity for you to work at Tesla. Tesla's doing amazing things and this will look great on your resume, all the talking points. He responds back and says, I just raised it higher. He said, don't email me back unless you're talking at least 200K. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking the audacity on him to say that. Yeah. But then they emailed him back a week later and they were like, well, we could push it to 150K, and he didn't even respond. And I just remember seeing that, and I was thinking like on one end, like at the time I was more so shocked about the way he was able to kind of like handle the conversation to a degree. But now in hindsight, I look back at it and I'm more so kind of just blown away at how Tesla being such a successful company right now. And people argue whether they're overinflated and things like that. But realizing how they, instead of them paying him what they could afford to pay him, instead they try to find ways around it, by saying, oh, we're this big deal of a company, so we shouldn't have to pay you that much. Right. And so realizing how, man, many of these companies, not all of them, because obviously we know like companies like Netflix pays, I know they pay at least their developers a crap ton of money. I think they're one of the highest paid like developers that work at not Amazon, but work at Netflix make, I think, round about like $450,000, depending on what level that they're at. Mm-hmm. So it's okay, that's really good. But realizing that there are larger tech companies out here that are trying to, I'm not gonna say play people, but find other ways to pay them without directly paying them.
Yeah, that $400,000 is gonna be total comp though.
Okay.
Yeah, your base might be about 200K.
Yeah.
Maybe, but then you have, again, stock options, maybe a sign-in bonus. And sign-in bonuses can range from $5,000, $40,000, $50,000.
Okay.
Some companies will, they get kind of creative in how they do that. Mm-hmm. So some companies won't necessarily give you like a windfall of cash because, one, a bonus will get taxed pretty heavy, like 40%.
Ah, that's true, yeah.
So to get around that, they'll kind of make it like a secondary check or income, so they'll split it up over 24 pay periods.
Yeah, I had a company do that with me, where they split up the bonus, and I was confused as to why they did it. I thought they were doing it as a way to make sure I stayed at the company for a certain period of time, which might be some truth to that. But two, I think I could also like see what you're saying, giving some insight with that.
So it saves you a little bit on the tax side. So you're basically bumping your income for 2 years or whatever that period is. So instead of 150, you might make 200K for 2 years, and then it'll go away year 3, back to 150.
Man,
yeah. So be ready for it.
Okay.
But yeah, in case of companies that have the stock to throw around, it's not necessarily a bad thing to have stock. If a company makes a run, then your stock makes a run too. So, but yeah, I think anyone that's getting in, you want to see what the market's doing. It's okay to take a little less, depending on the role, the company, because that exposure experience can mean more.
Yeah, that does matter.
Down the road. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you just gotta, put in your time a little bit.
Okay, so we have to wrap up soon, but there's something I definitely wanted to ask you to touch on a bit. One of the purposes of Tech is the New Black, and my whole passion behind telling people about this space. Initially, it was just telling people, hey, this industry is great. It's good money, good opportunities, all of that. But one of the other things that I started realizing more and more is that, man, like, there are industries that aren't tech industries that are becoming disrupted. Whether we talk about, things people are already familiar with, whether we're talking like, the transportation industry, things like Uber and Lyft,
fintech.
Fintech disrupting the financial industry and banking. And I mean, the list is going on and on. And even I remember as a Lyft driver, because that's what when we were meeting, my main source of income was Lyft driving. And I remember, like, once I got into this industry, because it's funny, like, Uber and Lyft disrupted the transportation industry, but now there are a lot of Lyft drivers. Every time I catch a Lyft and I'm talking to a Lyft driver and it's a long ride, I ask them, hey, what's your exit strategy? How do you plan on getting out of this? Because you do realize that the same way Uber and Lyft disrupted the transportation industry, they're trying to get self-driving vehicles to eventually remove you.
Sure.
So this can't be a 10-year, I'm going to do this for 10 years. And no, you need to have a plan to get up out of this. So now that's just like one example, but this spreads across multiple industries where people don't realize what's about to happen to their industry or their corner of the world where they think they're safe. And so my passion became, hey, man, I really want to, even if people don't want to be in tech, you need to be aware of some of the things that are coming downhill that are going to affect you whether or not you want it to. So from your vantage point, like, what are some of the things, whether we talk about like Web 3.0 or, the metaverse or other things that are happening that people might want to look into a little bit?
I would probably say AI, machine learning.
Okay.
That's in practice. I mean, there's some things you're touching on that, some of the traditional everyday tasks that happen, say, in an IT operation. Now you have systems that can kind of make decisions on their own, particularly in the security space, right? So what used to be, you had monitoring, intrusion detection, IPS stuff going on where you just got to look at things that are happening and then someone has to react to it. Yeah. That reaction now is based on some type of model.
I just invested in a, don't y'all judge me for this investment. Nobody judge me for this. But I got pulled in. It was on Instagram. I don't invest from stuff I see on Instagram usually.
Meme stock, huh?
No. It wasn't meme stock. It's a company where they utilize, I believe, a version of machine learning where they have, it's like an actual like robot or hardware that it can watch you do something and it learns what you did. So they're using it right now first inside of like certain fast food chains where it can watch the task that someone will do. If it's like a task that's like very repetitive, them grabbing something and the machine, like, it can scan you and watch the task that you're doing, and then the machine will be able to go and do that task. And of course they're working on building it out. They're right now in I think it's either they're between seed round and Series A. And so I was okay, this is a good spot to kind of throw a quick $1,000 at them and see what it does, kind of like watch it. But you kind of got me thinking about that when you mentioned machine learning, where it's like, man, like, is that similar where like an actual machine is watching what someone is doing, or like what does that really look like?
It's both. So you can, people create models, AI, artificial intelligence, they're just constantly feeding these models and these scenarios. And so there's things that will happen, whether it be something physical or a decision, a calculation, a prediction. It's all based on a model. So there's models based on the data, the input, and it just keeps evolving. And so every time you use your phone, Facebook, TikTok, IG, they're capturing every interaction. everything you're doing, and they can kind of predict what you're going to do.
Okay, it makes a lot more sense. I read a book called Dataclysm that talks about we gotta wrap up. I'm starting to get like real hype. But I read a book called Dataclysm. It's from the founder of OkCupid. Okay. And the book talks about the data that they've extrapolated from people using their dating site, and it breaks down how the technology knows you better than you know you.
For sure.
It knows, and we've all seen it where you're scrolling on social media and it's like, all I did was thought about this thing. How did it appear as an ad? You know, people talk about things that they say out loud, but oftentimes it's not even something you said. You get pushed something that you just thought about. And it's because like the technology is really learning you and knowing you better than you know you.
Right.
And so that is, so all of that, even I guess the whole notion of like, I don't know if you still have your Tesla, but even the notion of like how with Tesla, they're allowing their drivers to help them like figure out stuff in terms of driving or figure out stuff in terms of self-driving. And so all of that is a part of machine learning.
Right.
Man.
Data.
Data is king. One of the most valuable assets in the world.
Data is king.
Is data.
Yeah.